Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty complex, profound text and breaking it down into a clear, structured roadmap. We're looking at this fascinating map of spiritual progression, literally how a person goes from wandering aimlessly in life to finding this deep inner spark and ultimately dedicating their entire life to a monumental global mission. It's a massive journey.
So the source material we're pulling from today is the foundational text Eternal Buddha, written by Ryuho Okawa. And what's really compelling about this book is its core trajectory. We're actually going to zero in on just the very first chapter today, which is titled Awaken. This chapter lays out a highly specific blueprint. It starts with this deeply internal, totally personal realization, and then forcefully pushes the practitioner toward an outward, world-changing philosophy of action. It's a complete arc. You go from the micro, your own heart, to the macro, the entire world.
All right, here is our path for today, mapping exactly to that opening chapter. We'll cover 1. The call to awaken, 2. Light in the darkness, 3. Faith as a lifeline, and 4. Fulfilling the ultimate vow. Let's jump in.
Starting off with Section 1, The Call to Awaken, Discovering the Inner Calling.
Right off the gate, the author makes a super bold claim. If you are drawn to these teachings, you aren't actually encountering them for the first time. The idea is that you've been a disciple of the Buddha in past incarnations. And the text gives us a specific term for how you identify this past life connection, this proof of a Buddhist disciple. It's called bodhicitta. Basically, it's defined as a really strong aspiration to seek the spiritual path. A yearning to live for something sublime, fully acknowledging that the road ahead is going to be incredibly severe. The text views this internal desire, this deep itch you just can't scratch with secular life, as absolute empirical proof of your soul's connection to spiritual truth.
To find this bodhicitta, the author practically reaches right through the pages, urging you to question your own heart. Do you have a desire to live strongly for something greater? And what's really fascinating here is how inclusive the text is. It suggests that even if this desire is faint, even if it's literally just a whisper in the back of your mind, it still counts. That faint whisper is considered a definitive sign of an awakened state. Which brings us to the next phase of the journey. Section 2. Light in the darkness, epistemology and truth. So once you actually recognize that inner calling, the text immediately addresses the stark reality of the human condition. On one side, you have wandering in darkness. The text describes our everyday human experience as being trapped in a world of ignorance, constantly confused because people just don't have a true standard of value to base their lives on. But on the other side, we have walking a clear path, and true clarity, the book argues, happens only through the teachings of the Buddha. These teachings aren't just presented as good life advice. They are a radiant standard of value. It's a literal light cutting through the darkness, allowing you to live righteously, even when the world around you is completely dark. Now you might be wondering, how do you actually grab hold of this light? Well, this is where the importance of belief comes in. But the text defines faith very specifically. It's not about blind, unthinking belief. It equates faith with a state of active knowing. Faith is knowing the light of the Dharma. It's knowing that this light is made of love and compassion, and crucially, it's about knowing your soul parent. Recognizing that this guiding light is a direct emanation from the primordial Buddha of the universe. It's a massive shift where you finally see the guiding mechanism behind everything.
Now let's look at how this plays out in the real world with Section 3, Faith as a Lifeline, Holding On Through Hardship.
I love how pragmatic the text is here. It definitely doesn't promise that waking up to this light makes life easy. Actually, scratch that. It practically guarantees that this path brings severe trials. And to illustrate this, the author uses some incredibly striking imagery. Just listen to this. Even if heavy rocks of 1,000 kan fall from above your head, attempting to crush your body. Okay, for context, a kan is an old Japanese unit of weight, so 1,000 kan, that is roughly 8,000 pounds. It's a completely overwhelming, crushing force. The author uses this visceral metaphor to represent the intense worldly resistance or sheer life tragedy you might face when you actually try to live by this new spiritual standard.
So, what exactly do you do when 8,000 pounds of rocks fall on you? The text introduces the absolute non-negotiable requirement of the lifeline. You must never, ever let go of your faith. It describes this lifeline as literally holding on to the metaphorical robe of the Buddha. As long as you maintain that grip, the disciple and the Buddha are one. That connection is exactly what gives you the supernatural strength to survive those falling rocks.
And the logical conclusion of this lifeline metaphor is huge. The text forcefully asserts that true faith makes you strong, never weak. It states there is literally no precedent in history where genuine faith weakened a person.
So it gives the reader this amazing self-diagnostic tool. If your faith is making you feel hesitant or defeated, well, it means you haven't truly grasped the lifeline yet. Real faith builds absolute, unshakable confidence.
Okay, let's dive into our final section today, Section 4, Fulfilling the Ultimate Vow, Ethics and Action. So this is where the entire internal journey shifts to outward action. You've awakened, you've survived the crushing rocks with your lifeline. Now what? Well, the text lays out 3 concrete expectations. First, humility. You have to humbly open the window of your heart to the teachings, just totally letting go of earthly ego. Second, gratitude. You must live your life as a repayment for the teachings you've received. And third, action. You're expected to actively fulfill your vow to the Buddha by going out and sharing these teachings with others.
And the author takes this a step further with a really bold, maybe even controversial claim. The text states that providing these spiritual teachings to people is an act of charity, greater than providing food to the starving, clothes to the naked, or shelter to the homeless. Why? Well, the logic here is that physical bodies will eventually die no matter what, but saving a soul by giving it a spiritual standard of value, a lifeline, that lasts for eternity. So spreading the truth is framed as the absolute highest possible good a human being can perform.
Everything culminates right here, in the mission itself. The author sets a monumental scale for the readers. The ultimate vow that the disciple has to adopt is to save absolutely every living being on earth, leaving no one behind. It's an incredible transition from a single person's faint inner whisper of desire all the way to a towering responsibility for the spiritual salvation of the entire globe.
So, whether you look at this text as literal truth, philosophical metaphor, or just a really intriguing psychological study of belief, the structure of its argument is undeniably powerful. It moves flawlessly from inner vulnerability to outward, unshakable conviction. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to turn this esoteric concept into a question for you. Think about your own life, totally separate from any specific doctrine. If you had to define your own internal standard of value today, what is the ultimate lifeline you would hold on to when the heavy rocks of life inevitably fall? Thanks for joining me, and keep exploring.